Yes, now I think my screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Good afternoon, dear students. I am Mohammad Abdul Azim. I'm taking programming languages for you this semester. This is a classroom which is created for the same. I think probably most of you have joined this, but whoever have not yet joined, I want all of you to join as early as possible. Okay, so here I have published the.
Sir, your screen is not visible, sir.
It's not visible. No, it's visible. You can probably. Is it visible now?
No, sir, it's not visible now.
Now it is visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible now.
Yes. You can see my entire screen, right? Yes. I have taken a next tab. Are you able to see the Google Classroom?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Good. So I have published here the syllabus and the course outcomes of this subject, which are going to probably learn at the end of the course. I wanted to give you a little glance over it before we start the course. What is it we're going to learn out of it after we complete the course? System has become slow since it was being on since morning. Okay, I think you can see now. Is the font size legible for you? Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. The course prerequisite, you need to have a basic knowledge of procedural and object-oriented programming language. I hope you have finished C programming in first year, right? So you got some basic about the programming constructs and the syntax and semantics of the same, of course. But that is quite enough for you to go ahead with the programming language subject here. The course objectives that are required, I mean that you probably we have designed as part of this particular subject to briefly describe various programming paradigms. So we are going to discuss about the different programming paradigms. We have functional programming, we have procedural programming, structural, unstructural. We have object-oriented programming. We have logical programming. We have imperative programming. We have there are different paradigms. Of course, the latest one is the concurrent programming. Right? So we'll discuss all these different paradigms here to provide conceptual understanding of high-level language design and implementation. Of course, you may have got some difference between the high level and low level at the first year level. When probably during the introductory classes, you may have brought to, you may have been, noticed. We have noticed that the language which is basically from the user's point of view is quite easy set with the high level or the user level, which is easy from the machine point of view. Which can be easily interpretable on the machine is set up with the low level or the machine level languages. Of course, we are in the high level paradigm, so we of course use the high level languages and their implementation. Of course, you may have been explained about how the high level languages are being implemented based on different steps, and that are again we are going to discuss here. The right stepwise, phase wise, we are going to discuss here how the high level languages are being converted into the low-level languages, what are the different phases in between, and how finally that code which you write at the user side, the end user side will be interpreted on the machine and make the machine to understandable, and let your respective task to be carried out as your respective manner, rather, right? To introduce the power of scripting languages. Fine. So now we can see after internet has become an essential or indispensable thing for all of us nowadays, right now. It was earlier only for maybe academicians and probably scientists at the defense or avionic other kind of thing. But now you can see Computers is everywhere. Without computers, no business, nothing. And you can see after the pandemic, rather, the entire business, is being carried out for internet, right? So the kind of languages that are being used in the internet are the scripting languages, right? Scripting languages. So we discuss about the scripting language. We have many scripting languages starting from HTML. We have Perl. We have PHP. We have Python. We have JavaScript. We have ActionScript. We have VBScript. There are many scripting languages, of course, which are basically widely used across the internet, right? So to provide another objective of learning this particular subject, programming language, we provide our introduction to formalism for specifying syntax and semantics of the programming language. So programming languages, one programming language you already acquainted with, that is C programming language. You may have seen that for everything to implement through C, you need to write a program, and where a program is a set of instructions, let's say. And what is an instruction? Instruction basically is a well-defined sentence, right? Well-defined sentence, and it has to be as per a particular rule or a protocol, rather, right? Which is nothing but the syntax. So without syntax, you can't write the program. You can't, execute anything throughout the computer with the help of the programming language, right? So syntax, the other way is a scientific definition. If I have to suggest for the same, I can say that syntax is a set of rules that govern to see whether a sentence is well formed or not. Okay, and how this instructions are going to be interpreted, they will be understood by the machine and machine components are system side developed programs. We call it as system programs. So how system programs like compiler or similar, you have loader, linker, and you have operating system, you have IDE, these all are said to be the system programming, right? This comes under system programs, right? And your program is said to be the user program, right? So you write your program as per the syntax, and when you submit the same to the machine, right? You have many system programs. These are all system programs. How they are going to receive the same, how they need to interpret the same on the machine by understanding in the way the user has specified. So that is the semantics of it. So syntax and semantics plays a major role for developing a programming language. To provide an explore to core concepts and principles in contemporary programming language. So we have contemporary programming languages, always like Python. You have basically you probably look at machine intelligence, which you're talking about now, artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is not a new concept because way back in 70s there was a very boom for this, and the kind of programming language that were being implemented at that time, for the same were very lower end, and the machines that time were available are very lower end. Like people are using Lisp programming, we call it as LISP, Lisp program. We have a Prolog kind of thing, right? So these kind of programming languages are being used for artificial intelligence applications. The time when I said when it was started with the boom back in 1977. But due to incompatibility of the hardware and the proper software, that was not taken off, right? Now we got a higher end system. We have got core, dual core, we got qual core, we got octa core, we got hexa core processors. We got higher end operating systems. We have got very good RAM capacity, very good cache capacity. We have good hardware available, and at the same time we have very good software platforms, IDEs, languages, supporting languages, from front side or back side, from the middle side. A lot of developments took place between 70 to 2020 beginning, right? So now, because of the availability of the resources, now that AI, which was thought of to be taken off in 70s. Now it is taken off, right? And most of the programming language are being used for, for AIR. Nowadays, like you have R, you have Python, you have many, frameworks available. A lot of frameworks also available for us to the same. Anyway, we're going to discuss about the same, at the end, right? So after you complete the course, what is that you expect, from this particular course? Said to be the course outcomes, right? So the course outcomes, right, which one can expect at the end of the course is, he can be able to represent the syntax and semantics through formal notation, and he will gain the knowledge. He will be able to gain the knowledge to choose a suitable programming paradigm for a given application. There are a lot of applications. You have networking applications. You have student-driven applications. You have business applications. You have avionic. You have control system applications. System programming applications. You have a lot of applications, right? But which one is suitable for what application? For example, you are developing some system program, right? What kind of programming language is suitable enough for the system program? Of course, C, C++ are good enough from our point of view. But let us say if you are developing some, business application, what kind of language will be suitable for business application? Well, so that way, maybe .NET or other kind of thing. So that way, you are able to you are able to choose from your side that what language could be suitable enough for developing your respective application at the end of the course, and you will be able to analyze the design issues of modularity in different language varieties. Of course, modularity is one of the programming constructs that is available, of course, across all programming languages. Which comes through the control abstraction, right, and procedural abstraction, right? So, like you have, you can see you have already worked with C, so you can see in C language you have the programming, is a combination of sort of functions, right? Function can be considered as a separate module, like that. So, if you want a certain task to be carried out, regularly, what you can do, you can consider it as a module and get it executed, at some place and get the result at the other place, right, wherever you require. So the advantage of modularity that you may have learned probably during when you have studied functions, reusability is one of the basic advantage that you get out of it, and memory saving you will be able to do. You'll be able to reduce the typing of the program, and you'll be able to reduce the source code. You'll be able to reuse the memory. There are a couple of advantages, of course, right? You'll be able to achieve when you're working with modern or programming languages where this has been extended to packages. Like in Python also we have package concept, right? So so this modularity approach. So the advantages that you probably get out of it, you can probably make use of it with features that are being offered by the programming language, right? And you will be able to understand the role of abstraction and design issues to implement concurrency exception handling, right? Like as I said, without abstraction, the system doesn't work, right? For example, if you go to bank, you want to withdraw some money from the bank. So you just fill up a token, give it to the teller, and you wait until you get your number, because you'll be going to give your token once you submit that requisite form. And you don't bother about how your money is going to be withdrawn from the bank and will be made available for you. You are not bothered about it. There is some program running behind, and probably you may check whether the amount you have asked for is available or not. Your account is having sufficient amount to withdraw you the required amount that is requested by you. Right. So he will check all that, and there is some criteria to ensure that there should be some minimum amount should be available in the account to be always available. So we may check that keeping that minimum amount, can he be able to withdraw the money. Can you be able to provide you that amount of money which you have requested for? So there is some kind of program runs behind which you are not interested in. I say it is a function, or I say it's a operation, right? So you're not bothered about to know how this operation or the functions will be carried out in the background, right? Which is being hidden from you. So, hiding the non-essential details, the implementation from the user is the abstraction. So abstraction, you can see that in any of the program area, it is available. It is available, in almost all the programming without abstraction. There's no programming language, right? And you can observe this abstraction at different levels, right? If say, for example, object-oriented programming language, we talk about object-oriented programming language will treat everything as a data, right? So there you can see data abstraction, and for example, functional programming. If you see, for example, list, or C and all kind of thing, where you find functions, so functional abstraction you find there, right? And the execution of these functions will be carried out through control abstraction. So I can say majorly data and functional abstraction will be able to find in many of the programming languages in addition to control abstraction. So this, and then when you are executing multiple tasks at the same time, which is said to be the concurrency. What do you mean by concurrency? When you are executing simultaneously two tasks. Yeah. So this kind of concept is achieved with the help of threads in Java, and in Smalltalk or in Simula or in C hash, other languages also where you can probably find this concurrency, right? Multiple threads running in the see, when you are trying to access Google server, millions or billions of users are accessing the Google server. Of course, there are replicas, of the same available across the different states or countries and all, but still, for every server there could be some. I can say sometimes it could be millions also, largely request comes. How many of them are going to be? Every one of them is being processed. Of course, with the help of advanced technology, when a server could not able to process the same request, it can probably delegate the same to one of its nearby proxy and all kind of thing, because of which you may sometimes find maybe delayed from accessing the particular server. These are all technological development that took place over the time. But then when you see at the basic level, multiple requests will go to the server. How server is going to process all such requests that are coming from different users, right? With the help of concurrency kind of thing, right? Multitasking, multi-threading. You can see now all the operating systems are multitasker. You have a Windows 10 or Windows operating system. Right? You'll be able to open a window, access some kind of site at the same time. You can open another window where you can probably, do some kind of drafting of a letter and all kind of thing. At the same time, you can open another ID where you can execute some program. You can open another window. You can probably, you can do another task of taking a print or, capturing a camera, capturing a photo through camera. All this multiple tasks you're able to do it, right? This is because of concurrency. So this is going to be provided at the programming level at the beginning level of this, right? So only then probably that can be adopted at the hardware level, at the system programming level, or other kind of thing. And at the end, of course, you will be able to explore the features of functional and logical programming paradigms. Of course, we're going to discuss some of the functional programming languages like Lisp and ML and all kind of thing. And we have programming language, logical programming like Prolog kind of thing. We'll probably discuss. This is what you're going to learn at the end of the subject. Right now, I'll just go through the syllabus which I published here in Google Classroom. It carries 5 units here. The first unit you can see is about the preliminary concepts of the programming languages, where we are going to discuss about why we need to study the programming languages, concepts of programming languages, programming domains, what are the different programming domains we have, how to evaluate a language, what is the criteria to evaluate the language, and what are the influences happen while designing the languages, and language categories, programming paradigms. I said some of them which have this imperative kind of things. These are imperative kind, object-oriented, functional programming, logical programming. These are some of the programming paradigms we are going to discuss in Unit 1. Then how, when we are working with high-level languages, the phase-wise, translation from high-level language to till it reaches the machine is going to be carried out. We're going to discuss about then. We have mostly high-level languages are of two kinds, compiled and interpreted, and we will discuss about. And then the syntax and semantics of the. And then we probably discuss the grammar, right? Baker's norm form, extended Baker's norm form, and Chomsky norm form. These are some of the standard notations we have to design the grammar for programming language. So we'll discuss about the same. And then in second unit, we are going to discuss about the data types. For any programming language you take, right? There are two things, there are two programming constructs which you start with, learn any programming language. You start when you want to learn C programming language or Java, Python, that kind of thing. There are, firstly, you look into two things, right? In addition to tokens, or the character set that we program on. One is the data type, another one is the operations. Right. So, because what are you going to do with the help of programming language? After all, you are going to process some data, right? Because when you look at the machine, what machine of course does machine at the end you can say the build it just process the data. You have some program, you input the program, and the program is going to process some data and produces some kind of data. So at the end, in the beginning, in the middle, or at the end, you see there is data. So entirely data is what probably you are going to work with, right from the beginning to the end. So how the data is being represented is what you will learn with the help of the learner. And when you learn any programming language, you probably first look at what are the different data types that applicable programming language is offering for data, right? So I can give, there are multiple definitions you have for data types, but a vague definition you can probably take for data type is a collection of data elements, right? And a set of operations you perform on the same. That is said to be the data types, right? So data types, it combines with the operation when you probably talk about data. Data is a collection of elements. You can say a set of objects, or you can say a set of events. But then, in addition to that, you say set of operations also performed on the particular data. Because while data types are being specified, the time of specifying the data itself, the language designer is going to specify the operations which are possible enough to be performed on the particular data types. Right. So there's a reason why when you are defining the data type, you need to take the operations also in conjunction with the data you are talking about. So different kind of data types that are being offered from the different kind of programming languages. Like you may have probably learned C language. When you have classified data types into majorly three broad categories like built-in data types, user-defined, and then data type. Under built-in, you have learned about like integer, character, float, long, kind of thing, right? So you may have learned about how much you may have learned the complete details of every specific data type. What size when a particular variable is declared, that your data will be allocated from the operating system side, and then what kind of operations can be performed on the particular data, and all. This all comes as package in package to that particular respective data type we will talk about. So first you look at what are the data types that are being offered by a particular programming language, right? Next thing you will learn about what kind of operations you can perform on this data. Fine. So that we are going to learn in second unit. Fine. And probably in addition to that, we will learn programming constructs. Like the control statements. Control statements include conditional and conditional statements. We have learned in C like conditions will include if it's y to y kind of thing. So, and then the unconditions will like the break continue go to may have line, and then switch case is one of the control structure. Case control structure you have learned. So this all comes under the control control statement of the C language. So similarly, other programming languages also offer control statements. So, we're going to learn and then compare and contrast across different languages as well to ensure that what is the difference between one construct of one programming language, construct of a programming language, and how some programming languages are playing better than the other programming language. So while discussing this, we'll probably compare also. We'll compare with the other programming and then discuss the pros and cons of the same. Fine. And in third unit, we're going to discuss about the subprograms. So the subprogram concept, as I said in C language, you have with functions, you have that concept being offered by that programming language. Similarly, like if you go with object-oriented, the meaning of the subprogram will be changed. So anyway, so how the subprograms, what are the different subprograms? I mean, how we have learned that functions in as well, call by value, call by reference. With respect to the type of values that you pass, the classification could be on different aspects. We'll see BC call by value result, call by copy kind of thing. We have from different programming language perspective, the classification of these subprograms is done on different aspects. So we discuss about the same, and then how does it being stored in the system of an activation matrix? We'll discuss about it. Right. So we'll discuss about all the subprograms and coroutines and all, and their functions, their implementation, their pros and cons, and all. 30. Then we have in fourth unit, we have abstract data types to be discussed. So object-oriented concepts, comes into being here when you look at abstract data types. Class is an abstract data type, package and all kind of things. So these abstract data types which are being offered from different programming languages, how they are being represented, how they are being operational, and all of to discuss in this fourth unit. And then we have fifth unit. In fifth unit, we're going to discuss about function programming languages. Some of the programming languages that we're going to discuss in this, we have, of course, Prolog. We have, we have Lisp. We have ML, Haskell, and all kind of thing. And then at the end, we'll discuss about the scripting language. As I said, on internet, mostly the scripting languages are being used. Starting from HTML, Perl, PHP, and all, VBScript, ActionScript, and finally the Python, which is widely being used nowadays. Is also a scripting language, right? So we'll discuss about all this in our subject. I think you are clear about what you are going to learn in this programming language. Anyway, we will start our class from the subject point of view from tomorrow onwards. But I want you to take a test now.